You did everything right. So why do you still feel lost? Hello, my name is Pastor, and I'm back with this video on the topic, why you feel lost, even when you're doing everything right. You followed the path. You made the smart choices. You did what people said you should do. You stayed disciplined. You stayed consistent. You kept moving forward. And from the outside, it looks like you're doing everything right. So why does it still feel like something is missing? Why does it feel empty in a way you can't explain? Because the truth is, feeling lost is not always a sign that you failed. Sometimes it's a sign that you succeeded at the wrong thing. There is a quiet assumption most people live by. The idea that if you follow the right steps, everything will eventually make sense. That if you stay on the path, if you do what is expected, if you keep progressing, there will come a moment where everything clicks, where clarity appears, where you finally feel like you are exactly where you are supposed to be. And for a long time, that belief is enough to keep you going, because it gives your actions meaning, it gives your effort direction, it gives your struggle a purpose. So you follow the structure, you learn what works, you adjust your behavior, you build discipline, you sacrifice comfort, you delay gratification, and step by step, you move forward, you achieve things, you reach milestones, you create a version of your life that, on paper, looks right, looks stable, looks successful, and yet, somewhere beneath all of that, there is a feeling that doesn't match the image, a quiet sense that something is off, something is missing, something doesn't fully align. At first, you try to ignore it, because it doesn't make sense. You tell yourself you should be grateful. You remind yourself how far you've come. You compare yourself to others who are still struggling, and for a moment, that works. It pushes the feeling down. It gives you a temporary sense of clarity, but it never fully disappears. It lingers in the background, waiting for moments of silence, moments where there are no distractions, moments where you are left alone with your thoughts. And in those moments, the question starts to form, slowly at first, almost quietly, like something you're not supposed to ask. If everything is going right, why does it feel wrong? The answer is not simple, because it is not about one mistake. It is not about one wrong decision. It is about something deeper, something that has been shaping your direction long before you were aware of it. Something that influenced what you believed was worth chasing in the first place. From an early age, you are taught what a good life looks like, not directly, but through repetition, through observation, through the patterns you see around you. You learn what success means, what progress looks like, what kind of life is considered valuable. And over time, those ideas become familiar, and what is familiar begins to feel true. You are shown a version of success that is structured, predictable, easy to recognize, a path that makes sense to everyone around you. And because it is repeated so often, it becomes the default, the standard, the thing you aim for without questioning whether it actually belongs to you. So you follow it, not because you consciously chose it, but because it feels like the right thing to do, the logical thing, the safe thing. And for a while, that works, because movement creates momentum, and momentum feels like progress, and progress feels like purpose. But there is a difference between moving forward and moving in the right direction. And that difference is easy to miss, especially when everything around you is reinforcing the idea that you are doing well, that you are on track, that you are exactly where you should be. The problem is, when you follow a path that was not built from your own understanding, you can move very far without ever feeling aligned. You can achieve things that don't feel meaningful. You can reach goals that don't feel satisfying, and from the outside, it looks like success. But from the inside, it feels disconnected. This is where the feeling of being lost begins to take shape, not as confusion, but as misalignment, a gap between what you are doing and what actually resonates with you. A gap that becomes more noticeable the further you go. And the more you try to ignore it, the stronger it becomes, because it is not a surface-level problem. It is not something you can fix by working harder or pushing further. It is something that requires you to stop, to step back, to question the direction itself. But that is difficult, because questioning the direction means questioning everything that led you there. It means looking at your choices, your goals, your beliefs, and asking whether they were truly yours or whether they were shaped by expectations, by environment, by the need to fit into a system that rewards certain outcomes and ignores others. And that question is uncomfortable because it challenges the foundation of everything you have built. It creates doubt where there used to be certainty. It replaces clarity with uncertainty. And uncertainty is something you have learned to avoid. So instead of questioning, many people choose to continue, to push through the feeling, to distract themselves, to stay busy, to fill their time with activity so they don't have to confront the deeper issue. Because as long as you are moving, you can convince yourself that you are progressing, even if you don't know where you are going. But movement without direction eventually leads to exhaustion, not physical exhaustion, but mental and emotional fatigue. A sense that you are putting in effort without getting closer to something meaningful. A sense that no matter how much you do, it never feels like enough. And that is where many people reach a breaking point, not a dramatic one, but a quiet realization that something needs to change. Not because they failed, but because continuing in the same direction no longer makes sense. This is where awareness begins, not as a clear answer, but as a shift in perspective, a willingness to question what was once assumed, a recognition that feeling lost is not always a problem to fix, but a signal to pay attention to. Because feeling lost often means you have outgrown something, a path, a goal, a definition of success that no longer fits who you are becoming. And that is not failure, it is evolution. But evolution requires letting go, and letting go is difficult, especially when you have invested time, energy, and identity into something. Especially when stepping away means facing uncertainty, means stepping into the unknown without guarantees, without a clear outcome, without validation. And that is why so many people stay where they are, not because they are satisfied, but because they are afraid. Afraid of starting over, afraid of making the wrong choice, afraid of losing what they have built, even if what they have built doesn't feel right. But the truth is, staying in a direction that doesn't align with you has its own cost, a slow, ongoing cost that shows up as dissatisfaction, as lack of meaning, as a feeling that something is missing no matter how much you achieve. And over time, that cost becomes harder to ignore. because it affects how you see yourself, how you see your life, how you experience your own progress, turning what should feel like success into something that feels incomplete. So the question is not whether you are lost. The question is why. And the answer is often not what you expect. Because it is not about lacking direction. It is about following a direction that was never truly yours. And once you see that, everything starts to shift. Not immediately, not perfectly, but gradually. You begin to notice what feels forced, and what feels natural, what drains you, and what gives you energy, what you are doing out of habit, and what you are doing with intention. You start to separate what you were taught to want from what you actually want. And that process takes time, because it requires honesty. It requires you to look at your life without the filters you have been using, to question assumptions you have never challenged before. But that is where real clarity comes from, not from following a predefined path, but from understanding yourself well enough to create your own. And that does not mean abandoning everything. It means realigning, adjusting, making decisions based on awareness instead of expectation. Because in the end, feeling lost is not the opposite of being on the right path. Sometimes it is the beginning of finding it. A moment where the illusion breaks, where you stop moving automatically and start choosing intentionally. And that is where control begins, not in having everything figured out, but in being aware of why you are doing what you are doing, in being willing to question, to adjust, to change direction when something no longer feels right. Because your life is not defined by how well you follow a path. It is defined by whether that path actually belongs to you. And if it doesn't, no amount of progress will make it feel right. So, if you feel lost, even when everything looks right, don't rush to fix it. Don't silence it. Don't distract yourself from it. Because that feeling might be the most honest signal you have. A signal that you are ready to stop following and start choosing. To stop chasing what looks right and start building what actually feels right. And that shift, as uncomfortable as it is, might be the first real step toward a life that finally makes sense.